Leaders come and go. That's a given. But the real test, the really brutal test for any civilization, any state, it's whether the structures they build can actually last.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter if you're talking Rome, ancient China, or, a modern democracy.
History shows it again and again, right?
Yeah.
A state doesn't truly collapse just because a ruler dies. I mean, sometimes that's just political turbulence.
Exactly. The real collapse happens when the knowledge dies,
Yeah.
when the systems, the way things are done, the institutional memory, when that vanishes with the leader.
And that, right there, is what we're digging into today.
Yeah.
How permanence, how endurance gets engineered into a state, especially a new one.
We're looking back 14 centuries. Prophet Muhammad Aiki was building this rapidly growing community, and it desperately needed governance that wasn't just continuous, but was backed by documentation, by clear rules, by a real system for passing knowledge on.
So the whole thing had to be resilient,
Yeah.
able to stand on its own.
Critically. It couldn't depend just on his presence because, well, no leader is immortal. The system had to be designed to outlast him.
Okay, let's really unpack this. Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive.
Great to be diving in.
So, our mission today, we're moving beyond just the who comes next part of succession. We're looking at the blueprints, the actual structures that keep the lights on, that keep the state running smoothly. We're analyzing cases 61 through 70 from our source material on prophetic governance. These cases lay out the principles for, well, institutional continuity and making sure that governance knowledge doesn't just evaporate.
Yeah, if our last deep dive was about the framework for transition, the who, this one is all about structural integrity. It's the how.
How things keep going.
Exactly. How do you prevent power vacuums? How do you make sure expertise isn't lost when someone leaves? How do you build institutions that can actually weather storms, crises, transitions?
So if you're talking state-level resilience engineering, really.
That's a great way to put it. Proactive resilience.
All right, first things first. You got to have the day-to-day stuff working. Operational stability.
Can't plan for the future if the present is chaos.
Right. You can't talk grand strategy if the court shut down when the leader's out of town. So Case 61 tackles something absolutely fundamental. Justice.
Case 61, yes. The judicial substitution procedure. Sounds a bit dry, maybe.
Maybe a little.
But the core idea is simple and powerful. They set up a system for temporary or delegated judges.
Why?
To ensure that the process of justice, it just never stopped, under any circumstances, no pauses.
And the source material gives examples, right? Like companions being given judicial power when the prophet wheezes away.
Precisely. On campaign, on pilgrimage, whatever the reason. And this wasn't just, can you cover for me? It wasn't about workload sharing.
It was about backup.
It was about guaranteed operational redundancy. Think about it. A society moving from tribal customs where disputes could easily spiral.
Right, into feuds, revenge cycles.
Exactly. To suddenly having a central system of justice. That system had to be reliable. The lesson here is crystal clear. Justice can't halt. Not even for a day.
Because if it does,
Public trust just vanishes. Instantly. And the state's core job, keeping order, is shot. So justice was treated like an essential service, like emergency services today. It has to be there.
okay, that makes sense. But practically, finding qualified people on short notice
Yeah.
in a new state, wasn't that hard?
Good question. And wouldn't temporary judges maybe feel less accountable, knowing they're just filling in?
Yeah, exactly. Less scrutiny, perhaps.
Well, two things there. First, the delegated authority carried the full weight of the central power. So the accountability, the oversight mechanisms we'll touch on later, they were still fully in place.
Okay.
Second, and this is key, they didn't wait for the absence to happen, then scramble to find someone.
Yeah.
The central authority proactively identified and crucially trained people before they were needed.
So it was pre-planned, like having reserves ready.
Exactly. It was an apprenticeship, a vetting process built in. The system identified individuals with the legal know-how and the moral standing. So when a need arose, it just triggered the deployment of someone already deemed qualified.
That foresight. It really protects the institution itself, doesn't it? It says the judiciary is bigger than whoever's sitting in the chair at that moment.
That's the core principle, institution over individual.
Okay, so from immediate operations, keeping the courts running, Case 62 shifts gears. Higher level strategy, leadership, succession planning.
Now we're talking political architecture.
This is about designing the system to stop a power vacuum before it even becomes a risk, right? Engineering stability.
Yes, it's not crisis management. It's building preventative defenses into the very structure of the state. The source mentions explicit, detailed guidance being provided on how to choose qualified successors.
Explicit guidance. What kind of things did it cover? What made someone qualified back then? Was it just religious standing? Or military skill? Admin ability?
Well, what's fascinating is that the guidance pointed towards a combination, a sort of trifecta, really.
Okay.
Piety, moral integrity, administrative competence, could they actually run things? And social acceptance, crucially, were they willing to lead through consultation, Shura?
That sounds pretty different from the usual tribal way of doing things back then.
Oh, radically different. Tribal norms were all about bloodline, inherited status, maybe brute force. This guidance mandated a focus on merit, character, and capability.
Wow.
It institutionalized the idea that the next leader had to be functionally effective and ethically sound, not just the old chief's son.
So the lesson there, prevent instability before it starts. That means you can't just rely on one charismatic person.
Yeah?
You need formal, objective criteria.
That's the proactive stance, yes. You invest in the system, not just the personality.
And connecting that outwards. So you see why modern states get so focused on clear rules for succession, defined roles, qualifications, emergency protocols.
Absolutely. Without clear, agreed-upon criteria, succession becomes a free-for-all, a mess, maybe even civil conflict.
Right.
But when the rules for replacement are clear who's eligible, how they're chosen, and everyone accepts that process, the institution is much, much more likely to handle the shock of a leadership change without breaking apart.
That proactive planning, that framework, leads us right into Case 63, the Transitional Governance Framework.
Yeah.
This deals with that really tricky high-risk moment between leaders. Even if you know who's next, there's still that handover period.
Exactly. Case 63 is all about having structured measures ready to maintain order specifically during that period of flux. It's the institutional safety net for the handover itself.
What kind of things needed structuring? The source mentions clear delegation of duties after battles or expeditions.
Yeah.
What were the priorities?
Well, think about the practicalities. A growing state. You need taxes to keep flowing, right? Defense posts need to stay alert. The Treasury needs managing. Food supplies. Basic civil stuff. None of that can just stop because there's a transition happening at the top.
Okay.
So the delegations in Case 63 ensured these core systems kept running almost on institutional autopilot. The message was, the work continues even if the main leader isn't immediately available.
So the lesson, governance must not collapse in uncertainty. It needs a formal framework, not just spur-of-the-moment decisions.
Precisely.
But a question comes to mind. These caretaker governments, transitional councils, how do you stop them from getting comfortable, from trying to grab permanent power themselves? That happens, right?
Oh, it's a classic challenge in any transition. The key here seems to be the focus of the caretaker's mandate. It was strictly limited.
Limited how?
To maintaining essential stability and carrying out very specific, defined, non-controversial tasks. Their authority came directly from the previous authority's delegation, the prophetese, and it was inherently temporary.
And the fact there was already a succession plan in place helped.
Critically. The existence of Case 62, the succession plan, basically put an expiry date on the caretaker role. It discouraged power grabs because the legitimate path to leadership was already unfolding and had public buy-in. Okay, so now we're getting into the real deep stuff. Political longevity. How do you build systems that truly outlast the people running them? And how do you lock in knowledge so it doesn't just disappear?
Right. Case 64 kicks this off with the administrative continuity principle. This feels like where the bureaucracy, in a good way, starts to become key. Stability through process.
Yes, exactly. The source talks about setting up fixed routines, repeatable processes, codified systems for the absolute core functions. The Treasury, the courts, general day-to-day administration. These weren't just how we do things around here. They were becoming institutionalized protocols, documented ways of working.
So moving from relying on one person's memory or relationships
to a structured, more impersonal system, one that anyone qualified could step into.
And the lesson. Systems are greater than individuals. That feels huge. It's what separates a stable state from just a following around one charismatic leader.
It really is. If the protocols, the systems are strong and well documented, then losing even a brilliant leader. It's a blow, of course, but it doesn't mean the state itself ceases to function.
The next qualified person just steps into the existing framework.
Precisely. It's the essence of what we now call institutional memory. Think about, a big company today. If a star programmer leaves, The company might struggle. Unless their code, their processes, everything they did was meticulously documented, shared, put in a system everyone could access.
Like a shared knowledge base.
Exactly. The institutional structure is that knowledge base.
Yeah.
It ensures that when someone new takes over a vital government job, they don't start from scratch. They inherit files, documented procedures, budget cycles, precedent.
It protects against catastrophic failure, makes the whole thing more robust, more anti-fragile.
That's a great term for it, anti-fragile. It takes real foresight, though, doesn't it? To build those systems when just relying on personal charisma might seem easier or faster in the short term.
Definitely. Okay, so system stability. But what about distance? As the state grew, spreading out geographically, that creates its own problems. Case 65. Interregional coordination. How did they keep everyone on the same page?
Communication. Systematic, mandatory communication. The core mechanism was requiring frequent, standardized reports from all regional governors back to the center.
Standardized reports. That sounds like modern bureaucracy.
In principle, yes. It forces consistency and allows comparison.
So a lesson. Coordination preserves unity. Makes sense. If communication breaks down in a large organization or a state, that's where things start to drift apart. Regions develop their own agenda.
That's often the first crack, yeah.
But how did they ensure those reports were?
Yeah.
Well, honest. With communication being slow back then, how could the central authority in Medina verify what a governor miles away was saying? They couldn't just pop in for a surprise inspection easily.
True, direct oversight was difficult, but the accountability had layers. First, the reporting itself was mandatory and followed a format. That helped the center spot inconsistencies or outliers by comparing reports from different regions.
Okay. Comparing data.
Second, the governors themselves were supposed to be chosen based on piety and loyalty to the central principles. We'll see more on selection later. There was an ethical expectation.
Right.
Third, while regular visits were hard, the central authority absolutely retained the right to send out ad hoc investigators or auditors if something seemed off.
Ah, the threat of being checked.
Exactly. And the consequences for lying or mismanaging weren't just political. They were deeply moral and social, too. Loss of standing, loss of trust, the potential cost of dishonesty was very high.
That system of reporting, of checking, it feeds right into ensuring stability at the very top, doesn't it? Which brings us to case 66. Peaceful transition of power.
This one's crucial for social cohesion.
It emphasizes consultation, nonviolence.
So?
The source mentions the precedent of shura consultation for choosing future caliphs.
Yes, shura. And this wasn't just a nice suggestion. It was framed as fundamental for the legitimacy of the next leader.
We hear that word shura, translated as consultation, but what did it actually look like? Was it like a big town hall meeting or more selective? How did it work to get agreement, especially if there were competing factions?
It wasn't mass democracy in the modern sense. It was more of a deliberation among the recognized, respected leaders of the community, people with moral weight, political influence, social standing. Key stakeholders.
Okay.
Its main function, structurally, was conflict resolution. By mandating consultation, it forced different groups, potentially rivals, into dialogue instead of immediately reaching for weapons.
So it wasn't necessarily about everyone agreeing on the person.
Not always, but it was about getting enough consensus, enough buy-in from the critical groups to give the outcome legitimacy. The paramount lesson here: unity requires dialogue, not conflict. The stability of the whole system depended on the major players accepting the process of transfer, even if their preferred candidate didn't win.
That really resonates with modern democratic transitions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The election system might be messy, people disagree fiercely, but the whole thing rests on accepting the rules of the game, accepting the process itself.
Precisely. Legitimacy comes from the accepted process.
Okay. And for any of these systems, consultation, administration, justice, to actually work well, you need capable people who understand how it all fits together.
Which leads us perfectly to case 67, institutional knowledge transfer.
Right. How do you stop crucial governance know-how from just being stuck in one person's head where it can be lost? How do you make it an institutional asset?
You formalize the training. The source is very clear on this. Companions were rigorously trained, and not just in one thing.
Cool.
Across diverse fields, administration, law, military command, even things like managing finances and taxes. It was comprehensive, almost cross-disciplinary.
Why cross-disciplinary?
To create a pool of talent that was, to some extent, interchangeable. People capable of filling various specialized roles as needed, building depth in the administration.
That sounds like a massive investment. Time, resources, probably Much more effort than just promoting your buddies or your relatives.
Oh, absolutely a bigger investment. But a necessary one. It proves the lesson. Knowledge must be institutional, not personal. Like the difference between a master craftsman whose unique skills die with him and a training academy that can produce dozens, hundreds of qualified craft people using standardized methods.
There's this formalized training. It was about securing the future.
Exactly. It ensured the expertise needed to run the state effectively would survive beyond that first generation. The techniques, the precedents, the rules, they became part of a curriculum, not just secrets held by a few individuals.
It sounds like an early version of a civil service academy or commission.
That's a very good parallel. Creating structures to ensure expertise endures, somewhat insulated from the day-to-day political winds.
Okay, so we've got systems, we've got knowledge transfer, but for long-term survival, you need trust. You need accountability.
Absolutely. And resilience. The structure needs to hold up under pressure.
Which brings us to Section 3. Case 68 hits hard. Leadership accountability during transition.
Yeah, this is the real stress test, isn't it? The source highlights the need to maintain strict ethical standards and accountability precisely during that volatile period of succession.
That seems counterintuitive almost.
Yeah.
When power is shifting, when things are uncertain, isn't the temptation huge to cut corners? To prioritize expediency over strict ethics just to keep things stable?
That's the natural human impulse, maybe. But the example here argues the opposite. Leaders were held accountable regardless of the political flux.
Why was that so important? Wouldn't challenging a temporary leader during a handover risk destabilizing things even more?
Because the core lesson is, morality cannot be suspended. Allowing even minor transgressions or ethical lapses just for the sake of short-term stability during a transition, it fundamentally poisons the well. It undermines the legitimacy of the incoming leader and the entire system right from the start.
I see. So holding the line on ethics, even when it's difficult.
It sends a powerful message. It demonstrates the system's unwavering commitment to justice and rules, even under stress. And that generates long-term public trust, which is far more valuable than any short-term political convenience gained by looking the other way.
Accountability as the glue for legitimacy.
Okay.
But legitimacy doesn't mean much if the whole structure is fragile, if it can be easily knocked over. Case 69, governance stability mechanism. This is about crisis proofing.
Essentially, yes. Building in structural integrity, making the system inherently more stable.
How? What was the mechanism?
By implementing checks and balances. Specifically, the source points to separating powers or functions across the three areas where power tends to concentrate and corrupt. The treasury control of money, the military control of force, and the judiciary control of law.
That sounds very familiar. Separation of powers?
The principle is there, yes. Building in counterweights.
How did that separation actually protect against turbulence? What's the lesson?
The lesson is, institutions must be built to withstand turbulence. By creating some independence between these key functions, ensuring, for instance, that the army chief couldn't just dip into the state treasury whenever he wanted.
Right.
Or that judges weren't simply extensions of the political leader's will, they built in checks. It prevents any one person or faction from grabbing all the levers of power too easily or too quickly.
It's fascinating how that parallels modern governance structures. We talk about, say, independent central banks. Their whole purpose is often to insulate monetary policy from short-term political pressures from the government.
Exactly.
Or an autonomous judiciary. It's designed precisely to be a check on executive and legislative power, to uphold the law even when it's politically inconvenient. The principle of insulating core functions seems identical.
It really does. It's a recognition baked into the structure of, well, human fallibility, ambition, the risk of power concentrating. So you build institutional barriers to mitigate that risk. You insulate the state's essential machinery from the immediate political storms.
Okay, insulation through structure. And that brings us to the final piece, case 70, the comprehensive succession protocol. This sounds like it ties everything together.
It really does. It's the capstone. It's about ensuring that the whole process, all these mechanisms, ultimately produce a legitimate transition of authority.
How to do that? The source mentions a trifecta again.
Yes, the Prophet E emphasized 3 key criteria that needed to come together for legitimate leadership. Shura, consultation, which ensures broad acceptance.
Right.
Piety, moral character, which ensures ethical leadership and trustworthiness. And competence, actual ability, ensuring the leader can, do the job effectively.
Shura? piety, confidence. Why all three?
Yeah.
Couldn't you have a really pious leader who maybe wasn't the best administrator? Or a super competent one who wasn't chosen through consultation?
You could, but the argument here is that durable legitimacy needs all three legs of the stool.
How so?
Well, think it through. A leader might be pious and competent, but if they weren't chosen through shura, if key groups don't accept their authority, you risked division, instability.
Right, no buy-in.
Or they might be competent and broadly accepted, shura, but lack piety, lack that moral compass. Then you risk corruption, arbitrary rule, which eventually erodes trust and stability anyway.
And pious and accepted, but incompetent.
Leads to disaster through poor governance. Things fall apart functionally. So the framework aimed for the sweet spot. A leader accepted by the community, shura, morally upright, piety, and functionally capable, competence.
It's a holistic approach.
Yeah.
Moving way beyond just who's next in line based on birth.
Exactly. It's a method for transferring authority that's designed to minimize internal conflict and maximize social cohesion by ensuring the leader is validated on multiple fronts.
So the process itself confers legitimacy based on these agreed-upon criteria. Hashtag recap and synthesis. Wow. Okay, that journey, cases 61 right through to 70. It paints an incredible picture of deliberate socio-political design. Let's try and pull out the core lessons for everyone listening. 10 key takeaways for institutional endurance.
Yeah, let's nail these down. These are like the anchor points for continuity.
Okay, first, from case 61. Justice must never pause. Essential services keep running.
Crucial. Second, case 62. Proactive leadership planning prevents chaos. Don't wait for the crisis.
Third, case 63. Transitional frameworks maintain order during that risky handover period. Keep the ship steady.
Fourth, the big one from case 64. Institutions outlive individuals. Build the system.
Fifth, case 65's administrative lesson. Coordination preserves unity, especially over distance. Keep communication lines open.
Then the power transfer principles. Sixth, case 66. Power transitions must be peaceful, built on consultation, shura, dialogue over conflict.
Seventh, case 67. Institutional knowledge transfer secures continuity.
Yeah.
Train people, document processes, don't let expertise walk out the door.
Eighth, the ethical foundation from case 68. Accountability applies even in flux. Morality doesn't get suspended for convenience.
Ninth, structural strength from case 69. Institutions must be crisis-proofed. Build in those checks and balances. Separate key powers.
And finally, 10th, the capstone from case 70. Legitimacy sustains authority. And that legitimacy rests on that trifecta: competence, piety, and consultation.
10 powerful lessons.
Yeah.
Taken together. What's the big picture they paint?
The big picture is undeniable, I think. These precedents show emphatically that prophetic governance was deliberately, systematically designed to be institution-based, not personality-based.
Okay, more about that.
The constant focus was on creating structures, systems, protocols that could govern effectively, train successors, ensure accountability, and do all that independently of the founder, regardless of the unique skills or eventual absence of Prophet Muhammad himself.
That level of foresight. Building something designed to outlive you from the start.
It's frankly revolutionary for that era, and honestly, it remains absolutely fundamental to successful statecraft, to building any lasting organization, even today.
So for you,
Yeah.
the learner, listening
Yeah.
to this, that's the
Wow.
profound insight, isn't it?
I think so.
This isn't just history. It's a deep framework for understanding what makes institutions succeed or fail. These principles, continuity,
Yeah.
knowledge transfer, accountability, structural resilience, they're universal, timeless. Hashtag tag outro. So as we wrap up, we want to leave you with a thought to chew on based on everything we've discussed today. If the survival of any state, any large organization, really rests not on one person, however brilliant or strong, but on the continuity and resilience of its institutions,
Yeah.
then look around at the systems you observe today. Your country, your workplace, whatever it might be. What do you think is the single most vulnerable institution in that system right now?
Ooh, that's a challenging question.
Is it the mechanisms for accountability? Is it the independence of the judiciary or maybe the financial system? Is it the way knowledge is passed down or not passed down within the bureaucracy or the company? Where's the weak link?
A question that definitely pushes us to look past the daily headlines, doesn't it? To analyze the deeper structures.
Exactly. Food for thought. We've explored how systems are designed to endure. Next time on the Deep Dive, we're building directly on this. We'll be getting into cases 71 through 75, focusing on merit-based leadership and governance quality.
How leaders were actually chosen based on integrity and ability.
Confirming this wasn't about tribal ties or privilege, but about qualification. I look forward to diving into that with you then.